Hi, welcome to a brand new video of the Target Individual Program, Target Individual Experience. Brand new video today. Haven't done a video in a few days, just been home, relaxed, and though I am still on the heavy remote neural monitoring, heavy in-home surveillance, again, monitoring my online activities, my activities within the home, such as going to the bathroom, taking a piss, taking a shower. Again, using remote neural monitoring to see through my eyes. So whenever I touch certain things and certain things of a particular color, they will be police sirens or car honking. For example, my face towel, which is an earthy green, anything that I touch that's green, I'll hear police sirens. Anything that's blue, I'll hear police sirens, I'll hear car honking. And, it gets to the point where it becomes unbearable, because it is torture. And yet those in the police department and the security agencies think that this is okay, and even earlier today tried to coerce me into believing that this is totally legal, what it is that they are doing. Now, there are no laws that I know of which grant the police, the CIA, the FBI, the Department of Justice, the ability to monitor someone within their home, to use sounds such as police sirens or car honking to confirm whether somebody touched something of a particular color or of a particular items. For example, recently, whenever I pick up a knife, they will use the police sirens, right? Because again, they're trying to deter me from any sort of violent action, in retaliation to what they are doing to me. Now, I have never been one to physically assault anyone or even try to harm anyone physically. But because they know the nature of what they're doing and the anger that the person will develop, okay, this is why they have to continue to monitor us as targeted individuals. We've seen the likes of Aaron Alexis, Myron Hayes, Yvonne Hiller, who else? I forgot the Chinese guy upstate New York who shot up the unemployment office a few years ago, maybe over a decade now. All right, he was a TI. So when the government decides they're going to experiment on people, put people in non-consensual experimentation, particularly with illegal microchipping for the purpose of remote neural monitoring, brain-computer interface, to develop their AI, all right, artificial intelligence, and that's part of what it is that they're doing, but also to control you, okay? And when they realize that you become much more aware of the sinister program that they have you in as a TI, they will use certain tactics and methods to try to silence you. So for those of us who constantly speak out against our targeting, we are being targeted in more ways than one, okay? Now, we all know about MK Ultra and the sub programs that were under that banner. We know that these things were also done in Canada They were also done in the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union. They were done in East Germany. And also, they were running psychological campaign to discredit and to destroy the life of dissidents and those who certain people may have a particular grudge against. Now, people don't want to think that these things happen here in the United States, right? Particularly as TIs, when we tell people these things, they want to dismiss it. And this is why it's important that we do the research, we understand what is happening, what has happened in the past. This is why history is so important, and this is why you see today the powers that be, they are trying to erase history or change history to whitewash it into a sanitized version, particularly here in the United States, whether they're conservative or liberal, okay? And to stop people from speaking about the atrocious, horrible, evil thing that certain people here in the United States have done to others. Okay, so they will basically try to silence you. Okay, particularly if you're living in a liberal state. If you're living in a conservative state, what they're doing, they are basically outright trying to rewrite history, trying to add sanitized wording. Okay, in order to change the narrative about what really happened. Okay, and we cannot continue to allow those individuals, whether they're liberal or conservative, okay, to get away with these things. Okay? You have to understand that. You have to realize what it is that they're doing. And you got to make a conscious effort within your mind to always remind yourself of the truth. Okay? So before I go on into the video, just want to talk about my targeting and what's been going on. So again, like I said, I've been in the house. They've been monitoring my online activity. You know, I've been playing Fortnite, which is a game that I love to play. It basically, you know, takes my mind off of the targeting sometimes, but then they'll send their perps in these games that I'm in to target me. Excuse me, to target me. They would also, particularly what I find myself in, particularly when I'm playing Fortnite, is that when I play certain games, there'll be no one in the game lobby, right? But then something will happen, right? And then all of a sudden, people start coming into the game lobby to play with me, but they're there just to target me, okay? But the vast majority of the time, all right, when I'm playing Fortnite online, okay, now I'm not playing with friends, I'm not playing private, okay, but I'm playing the public, there will be nobody in the game lobby to play that mission with me until something will happen, right? Then all of a sudden, people start coming into the game lobby, but like I said, they're just there to target me. Okay. And I did a video which I gotta upload explaining how they target me in Fortnite. It's not complete. I mean, I finished one part of it, but there are other aspects that I'm learning in terms of observing what it is that they do in terms of targeting me in a certain manner. Okay. Also, you know, Pam, again, let's see, she so I stayed over Thursday night because I was knocked out the night before. She came in and went straight to sleep. Then Friday night she came in, went straight to bed. I got dressed, getting ready to leave, went into her bedroom till I'm leaving, and she was like, I'm not feeling well, I'm feeling nauseous. So I decided to stay. Saturday morning, got up, made breakfast for us, her, and the kids, and then took a shower, and then I left. Right. So around 8 something during the night, I called because I know she was like, she was going out for the weekend, so she had the babysitter, watching the kids. So at 8:30, Minister Nine, I called Ethan. He told me that he was out, and I said, "Okay, I'll call you guys back when you guys get in the house." So I was doing something. I don't know. I think I was watching some videos, and I look at the time. It was 11:20 something. So I called him, because on the weekend, she lets them stay up pretty late, while she's in her bedroom or whatever. If she's there with them, so they stay up till whatever time they decide they want to go to bed. So I called him at 11:25 to make sure that they're in the house and they're, and he tells me, he's like, "No, we're not home. We're at the babysitter's house and we're getting ready to leave soon." So I said, "Okay, whatever." I said, "I'll speak to you guys tomorrow." Called them on Sunday and he didn't answer because I couldn't sleep because of my insomnia. So I woke up around, I think it was like 3 something in the afternoon, and I called him at after 5. He didn't pick up. Called him twice. He didn't pick up because normally he's playing the game. So I'm figuring, he has his headphone on, couldn't hear. So I called Pam now, and she was like, "Oh, he's still sleeping and such and such." I'm like, "It is 5:30 in the afternoon on a Sunday. He has summer school, okay? He didn't get up until after 6 o'clock." And so when I spoke to her the second time, I said to her, I said, "Look, you had the babysitter having these kids out that late at night at her house for then to bring them over at after 12 o'clock, after midnight, and then she was like, "Well, you can't tell me this and that because, you don't help me watch the kids, what have you," which is a lie. You guys, if you watch my videos, you see I'm always over there, right? So I'm always watching the kids. The one thing I will not do, and I told her this, is that I will not watch the kids if you got dates to go on. Because for one, when I said, "Okay, let's pick a time for you to, come back," right? You don't stick to that time. Then when I get upset about it, you telling me about how, or you having so much fun, you don't think about me and coming home and this and that and all this stuff, right? It's funny how she tends to forget about all the shit that she's done and all the things that she said to me pertaining to that, right? It is very, very funny how, in her mind, how that shit works. And even when I tell her I'm not watching the kids, like for example, she had a work dinner, she says, right, to go to, and I told her no, but eventually I said to her, "Okay, fine, I'll go, but you need to be back by a certain time so I can leave." And she said to me, "No, that's okay. If I got to do that, if I got to be back by a certain time, that's okay." Right? And what did she do? She got a babysitter. And like I told her, I said, in those situations, get a babysitter. Shoot, when you got to go to work and the kids are home, I'm there. I get up early in the morning, even though I can't barely sleep. I barely get enough rest. And you hear the car honking. The reason why, because I'm sticking my thumb out as I'm talking. So you hear the car honking, and then before that, you hear the police sirens, right? I'm not sure if the mic will pick it up, but that's what's happening. So, this is what has been happening. So she sent me a text today, right? And again, like I said, I just, when they think they have the upper hand, that's when they start showing their asses. And I mean, talking about the perps and those within the police department, the criminals who are engaging in these things, right? They will start to target you even more severely, particularly when they figure that they isolate you, right? Now, I'm not isolated. The reason I'm in the house, because I have nowhere to go. Where am I going? Okay. Then they'll try to sending subliminal message, try to send honey traps. For one, I'm on disability. I got issue with my back. I'm targeted. So I'm not trying to date anyone. Okay? So when they, want to change their narrative or tell their lies, this is what they'll do. Okay? So no, thank you. Don't send the honey traps my way. If I meet someone, I want to be on my own accord. If I have the slightest inclination that this person was sent as a honey trap, it's not going to happen. Okay? Simple as that. So anyway, so she sent me a text. She sent me a text. This is today. Okay? And she just says good morning, and this is the text that she sent me at 12:11 p.m. And the text goes, I can't make it. I have to babysit my kids. It's not babysitting when they're your own kids. It's called parenting, and it's the bare minimum. Now, I don't have a problem parenting my kids because that's what I do. I love to parent my kids, unlike somebody else. Okay? I don't just take my kids out to brag to my friends that my kids and I went out. Okay? My kids are not an afterthought. That's who they are to her, not me. Okay? On top of that, you guys see my video all the time. Go watch my video. See where I am mostly at. Okay? And I'm going to tell you why she's sending me this text message. Because she has been doing to the babysitter what she has been doing to me for years. Okay? Which is, whenever she goes out, she doesn't think about anybody else but herself. She never thinks about the babysitter needs to get home at a decent time so she can get parking if she doesn't have a garage to park in. Okay? And this is a young woman, okay, who's in college. Actually, I'm not sure if she's in college anymore, but, doesn't matter, but still. So now all of a sudden she wants to send me something like this, but the answer's still going to be no. I will watch the kids if she got to go to work and the kids are home. If she got to go grocery shopping and the kids are home. I'm not watching the kids while she go out and date, screwing whoever, and not even saying to herself, you know what, I need to get home at a certain time so Nigel can go. Then she start with the argument, well, you stay when you want to. The funny thing about it is that she used to tell me, oh, you can't tell me what to do with my time, even though I was trying to help her to manage her time in way that she's not always tired. For example, she come home from work, she goes straight to bed, sleeping, wakes up at 12 o'clock at night or after 12 minutes to 1 and up until 3, 4 o'clock in the morning to go back to bed to get up for work. Then she'll call me about how tired she is. Okay? So when I'm giving her advice, sound advice, it's like, well, you can't tell me what to do with my time. Because it's funny how in reverse, she wants to tell me what I should do with my time. You know what I'm saying? And because I may spend the night there or, what have you, I don't want to be there when she comes home from whatever date she's been on because she's very nasty. She acts very nasty and disrespectful, just like she did Sunday when I told her about, the kids being out that late at night and for the babysitter to bring them home after 12. Okay, now it's the weekend. I can understand if it was me or her, right? Those are our kids. Okay, but that's what it is, and I think maybe the babysitter has had enough. Okay, so now she's sending me this stuff to try to make me feel like, I don't take. I parent. It's funny because all the years I've been in a relationship with this woman, the kids were with me 90% of the time, possibly even more than that. Okay? And I'm just being generous with her, giving her that 10%. 90% of the time, the kids were with me. Okay? Even on her weekend, the kids were with me most of the time. And now because of COVID, when COVID happened, the kids had to stay at her house and mostly with her. And I had to hear about, oh, you know, all during COVID, oh, you know, I can't go out, you know, my life is boring and such, and blah, blah, blah. Okay? She come home from work, still have on her work clothes, but she works in a hospital. And even though she claimed that she doesn't work in a hospital, I'm like, yes, you do. You still got to go see patients, and sometimes they're in the hospital. You work in the pulmonary department. The building is across the street from the general hospital, but it's still the hospital either way, because you still got to see patients. You're still around doctors who goes over to the general hospital so they can see patients also. And she would come in with her clothes on, go to sleep. And then when the kids get in her bed, and I tell her, listen, you need to change your clothes when you come in. You need to sanitize your clothes, because that's what I do. Okay? And I don't work in a hospital. If I take the bus, go over there. If I take a cab, go over there. What I do, I take off my clothes. I'm in my underwear and my shorts and a t-shirt or a tank top. And I sanitize my clothes. Okay? And because she works and puts a roof over their head and food in their stomach, which is what you're supposed to do. You don't get extra credit for that shit. You don't get a trophy for that. Okay? Because when I was working, that's what I was doing with my son and Ethan, because you know I was still working when Ethan was born. Okay? Because I was giving her a check every 2 weeks. Okay? My older son, you know, he was with me again most of the time, because I love being a parent and I love being around my kids. So I want you to understand how selfish these modern women are, particularly modern black women. And it is the programming that has been conditioned into their mind, okay? That they just want to have fun. They want to screw whoever they want to screw. Like, and don't think that that men should accept the fact that they sleep around with Tom, Dick, and Harry, because they're not men. Now, I'm not excusing the behavior of men doing the same, but that is a man's nature. Okay? And regardless of whatever these feminists say, nature is something you just cannot turn off just like that. Okay? And not all men now, because the majority of men don't do that. Okay? But now you have the majority of these modern day black women. I'm talking about modern day, whether they're in their 50s, 40s, 30s, when you're and 20s, okay? And they think that a man should accept the fact that if they sleep around with 200 people, okay, that's okay, and you know, we should accept them and marry them. Okay? And so a lot of stuff like that I've been seeing on Facebook, and I had to correct them by posting the truth, such as studies that was done about sleeping with too many people. You have a higher risk of getting cancer. Okay? You know, HPV. Okay? Also, sleeping with too many people, when you get into a serious committed relationship, it doesn't last, because when things go bad, you're going to be thinking about the people who you slept with, and you're probably most likely going to reach out to a few exes. Okay? Not also that, but sleeping with too many people can also lead to psychological issues. These are all studies that have been done, but because people are being lied to, people don't read, don't understand these things, that this is a narrative being pushed by white supremacist corporate America. Okay? When you look at who is involved, particularly in the porn industry and in the contraception industry, these are white corporations. Okay? And they have a vested interest in keeping people single, because keeping people single, they can sell them more stuff for single people, more trips, more products, more shows on TV about the glamorous life of being single. Yeah, okay. I mean, just fine. If you're single, you're single. But when you look at the statistics today of the vast majority of people who are single and unhappy, because singleness leads to unhappiness, regardless of what you hear some of these feminist black women would say, but they're happy and single. No, they're not happy being single. They're happy because they don't want no one, particularly a man, telling them anything. Okay? They want to do whatever they want to do, be whoever they want to be, without thinking about the consequences and without thinking about anybody else but themselves. Okay? Most of us, have that mentality. It is conditioned into us within the society, and particularly within the black community, where 80% of black boys are raised in single parents household, which are women as the head, no man in the house. And the women don't teach these young boys anything about life, anything about masculinity, anything about being the kind of man that a man would be able to teach his sons. They don't even teach their daughters how to be young ladies. And I say young ladies, not young women, young ladies, because there is a difference. Okay? So, coming from that experience and having gone through what I've been through, and having put people what I've put them through, and people put me through what I put them through, if you don't learn, you're going to repeat the mistakes over and over again. And what happens in society, because now society, the vast majority of people in society would be considered mentally ill. Okay? And particularly within the black community, where you see a high rise of mental illness, particularly now amongst black women. Okay? But because they're under the delusion of fun, they don't think about these things until they get older, and then they realize, look, did I waste my life? Did I, they start asking those questions, because the results they're getting is not positive, it's negative in terms of relationship. Same thing with men, black men. Okay, so the one thing as a TI, what I've noticed, particularly with me, is that when I start to think in this manner, they don't like it. They don't like it. They don't want you to change because of the narrative that they set forth, right, about you, which is not true, which is a false narrative based on a false profile. And then, because they know that, they have to make you into such persons. So you must understand what's going on, what's happening. Okay? So, like I said, being in the relationship with Pam for the past decade, over a decade, and what has happened, particularly with the gaslighting, with the control opposition, when I talk about my target, and it's like, oh, no one is such and such, let me get into an argument because I didn't do what she wants me to do. Then all of a sudden, now I have a mental illness. But all the time, she didn't want to believe me. Then I told her I was diagnosed with a mental illness. Oh, no, there's nothing wrong with you, right? Because she ignored everything I said. Hey, I'm a TI. I'm being targeted. You need to be careful. There are people out there who are going to try to come into your life, right? To break us up, to cause arguments and fights, and to wreak havoc. Okay? Now I've told all of this. But with certain narcissistic people, they will use a person's misfortune for their own gain. And even though it may be temporary, it is the satisfaction of playing the game is what they love. Until the negative outcome happened. And instead of taking the responsibility and say, you know what, such and such told me, I should have listened. This is, my own fault. And it's not 100% her own fault. So I would not do that. Okay? But because of the personality that have been created, all right, they will use it for their gain, even though it's just temporary. Or whether it be, I sincerely doubt it's ever going to be a long-term thing. But anyway, so yeah. So now, like I said, I'm getting texts like this, okay, which I have to laugh about. You know, I literally had to laugh about. Okay. Last week she called me at 7 something in the morning. Hey, you know, the kids are not feeling well. I can't take off for work. Can you come watch them? I got up, brushed my teeth, didn't even eat anything, went to her house. After she told me she couldn't take off anymore, what happened? On Thursday, she took off for work. Why? Because she had a date over the weekend and her place was looking a mess, and then trying to get me to clean up her house from the mess that she made. Okay? So I want you to understand the type of person that I'm dealing with, right? Though I have no problem cleaning her house. I've done it many times. The one thing I told her I would not do, I'm not cooking anymore because of the nature of a relationship now. And I said, I'm not cleaning up your bedroom. That's not going to happen. And any mess that you make, you're going to clean it. And the state of her apartment was, you know, after her and the super of the building tried to put up an AC, she just left shit over the place, put stuff on my son's computer, on their kid's laptop. And I was like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And so she wants to get upset. You know, these are the entitled, manipulative things that she'll do. Right? And now she sent me this about how parenting my kids is the bare minimum. Like, please. You know, I don't disrespect her, so I'm like, you know, but really, when I read that shit, I was like, be what? You know? I had to laugh at this shit because it's funny. You know, it is really, really funny. Right? So, like I said, the reason why she's sending me this is because she's doing to the babysitter what she's done to me many times. And now probably the babysitter was like, you know what, that's it. Regardless, I don't care how much you're paying me, this shit ain't worth it. Because if I got some place to go and I tell you and you're out and you didn't even think about me, the things that I have to do, I'm not doing it anymore. So this is why she's probably sending me shit like this. Okay? And again, I'm not 100% sure, but, you know, I can make an educated guess. So anyway, but, you know, after you hear the side, well, you guys not gonna hear the sound because I got a noise reduction filter on my mic, so you guys wouldn't hear, but it's a constant siren, police sirens, all right? Because you see, again, they've been sending me all these subliminal message about doing videos. If I do videos, I'll be arrested or whatever, take away my disability. It's the same shit over and over again, okay? It doesn't stop. It's the same messages over and over again, and they do it because they figure eventually they're gonna beat it into your minds, right? To your mind, to where you just give up completely. Okay, it's not gonna happen. Told you guys before, it's not gonna happen. All right. So anyway, let's move on to today's video. Okay, and let's see. Oops. Hold up. There we go. Thank you. Welcome to the Target Individual Program, the Target Individual Experience. Today, we are going to be talking about just a Zoom, okay? And we're going to talk about how psychiatry is used by governments, its security and law enforcement agencies, as well as corporate America, okay, to silence, to discredit, to destroy the lives of people who speak out, people who want to change things from the status quo, and other whistleblowers, for example, how the government, its security agencies, and law enforcement agencies have used psychiatry as a tool a weaponized tool to discredit and destroy their lives, including us as TIs who are victims of non-consensual human experimentations. Okay, so let's read about just Zoom, because a lot of the psychological tactics that's being used, the rumors spreading, the propaganda, is COINTELPRO too, but just Zoom was COINTELPRO on steroids. Just like targeting, it is a combination of the KKK harassment program, COINTELPRO, and just Zoom. Okay, so this film comes from the websites wondriumdaily.com. East Germany Stasi surveillance tactics and impact. Post-World War II, the internal security force for the German Democratic Republic, also known as East Germany, was known as a Ministerium für Staatssicherheit, MFS, commonly known as the Stasi. Many commentators describe it as the most repressive and oppressive surveillance system ever operated. Let's find out. Well, I think the United States got them beat on this one, because they've taken what, and mind you, these things didn't originate in Germany. They originated right here in the United States. Okay? Not with Russia either. These things were originated here in the United States. Okay? So I'm just giving credit where credit is due. I'm not making it up. You guys can go research it yourself. Okay? Early in her career, German Chancellor Angela Merkel was apparently approached by the Stasi and asked to be an informant for the state. She turned down the offer and got off by explaining that she was a blabbermouth who couldn't keep her mouth shut. It's a wonderful story, especially since she became known as a very close-mouthed leader of one of Europe's most important countries. With this anecdote, let's look at some activities that the Stasi, the internal security force of East Germany, undertook during its heyday. East German Stasi culture. The Stasi has, of course, a system of monitoring telephone conversation. It also had what is known as a mail cover system that opened up letters and parcels coming from overseas, as well as mail to certain targeted people. It tracks all of a few foreigners who were allowed into East Germany. In fact, there was a division whose job was to detect whether any citizen had illegal Western food in their garbage. Sorry. The Stasi sent strategy. The Stasi even took odor sample to enrich their files on their subjects. If you go to the Stasi Museum today, you can see them. Rows of jar with yellow cloth inside. Now, as a TI, particularly, if you were in a relationship and they happen to destroy the relationship, what they will do is that they will, because you're under surveillance and the other person under surveillance too, but they don't even know it, or maybe they do. But what they will do is that they will get people to do and engage in the same mannerism that the person you were in a relationship with would do. Okay, so for example, I talk about how when Pam drinks a bottle of water, that she would just crush up the bottle as she's drinking it, right? And so this is one of the things that they will also do. Like if I'm on the bus, somebody drinking water, they will start crushing up the bottle, or they would just start crushing up the bottle in their hands. And particularly when she does it over and over again for a certain amount of days. Okay, now she doesn't do it all the time, but particularly when she's targeting me, or they get her to target me, or they use her to target me, she would do these things, and then I would go home. Same thing would be repeated on the bus. And also, if certain perfume that she would wear, they would wear the same thing too. So reading about Zuster Zoom, as my experience as a TI, and I'm sure other TIs will attest to this, that you can see a correlation. You can see you'll have a direct comparison, because the same thing are being done to you under this program, this Coercive Persuasion Program. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, the Stasi systematically and secretly collect the smell of suspected dissidents for use as a comparison. For example, dogs might compare the smell on a flyer for a protest meeting against the smell from a suspected organizer. This is a transcript from the video series The Surveillance State, Big Data, Freedom, and You. Stasi Army of Informants. Okay? Now, as TIs, I want you guys to pay special attention to the numbers in which is being said. And even though the number here is quite conservative, because there were actually over 500,000 informants for the Stasis in East Germany at the time. Okay, so in Germany, in Germany, they were known as informant collaborators. Okay, informant collaborators, or in officiella. I'm not even gonna pronounce that. Okay, I'm just gonna say IMS. Though estimates vary, we can say with confidence that in 1989, on the cusp of the fall of the Berlin Wall, the East German government employed more than 170,000 of these IMS. When you consider that the entire population of the country was only 16 million at the time, this means that more than 1% of the population served as informants. Stasi informants. Here's an example of how such surveillance worked. The German news magazine Der Spiegel once reported how a nosy Hessführer who had been asked by her neighbor to water their plants while they were away went snooping through their cupboards and found the making for a delicious and, by the standard of austere East Germany, lavish West German pudding. Once the nosy neighbor informed state security, that was enough for the family breadwinner to be fired from his job and for the entire household to plunge into destitution. Okay? Wow. Stasi agenda: catch them young. Perhaps worst of all, some 10,000 of those informants, and as I say, worst of all, they start with the sirens and the car honking, because what they've been doing also is trying to say that, oh, I am the worst boyfriend she's ever had, or the worst person she's ever been in a relationship with. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Okay. You ever think about maybe she's the worst person I've ever been in a relationship with? Okay, but again, as a TI, everything is against you. Okay, it's to put you in the not category, the not true category. And I talked about this. And as I'm speaking, I'm like moving my hands, and when I put my hands in front of me with my palm facing towards me, they're doing the sirens. Like, wow. That's to tell you how I'm on the surveillance, remote monitoring, so that they know and can see when I do these things. Particularly, I talk about the palm fixation drill. So every time I have my palm out facing towards me, they will do car honking or police sirens, right? Okay. So, uh, let me reread that. Perhaps worst of all, some 10,000 of those informants were under the age of 18. They were children, many of them. That ring a bell, TIs? Many of them, perhaps spying on their parents. John O. Kostler book Stasi, the untold story of the East German secret police, suggests that if occasional informants were included, as many as 2 million East Germans were watching their fellow citizens. Now let's go back further than this, right? World War II. What did the Nazis, the SS, do? They had German citizens spying on other German citizens, but because these other German citizens were Jewish, okay, they were being spied on by loved ones, significant others. You know, I want you to understand how easy it is for government to do these things. And this is why I say, if you don't understand history, when these things happen to you, you're constantly asking the question, why? But when you understand history, you know that we're just modern day victims of these kind of programs. Okay? So, and again, 2 million now, right? And these were called occasional informants, okay? So, if true, such a number surely validates Nazi hunter Simon Wiesenthal belief that the Stasi were even more oppressive than the Nazi Gestapo. And I've been talking about this, particularly within to black people, particularly on Facebook, right? And I keep saying what's happening, how they're conditioning black people today, particularly young black people. Okay, so when the time comes for them to do what they want to do to us, okay, the world would be comfortable with the idea, because what they have doing is conditioning black people into this negative behavior and delusional mindset that the majority of the world, the non-black world, will look at black people, particularly in America, as crazy, delusional, what have you, and they deserve what they're going to get. Okay? This is what is happening. And I'm trying to tell people this and make people understand that, particularly black people, that this is what they're doing. This is what they're doing. Okay? So, if true, again, such a number surely validates Nazi hunter Simon Wiesenthal belief that the Stasi were even more oppressive than the Nazi Gestapo. Stasi versus Nazi. Using Wiesenthal figure of the Nazi Gestapo during World War II, there was one officer for every 2,000 German citizens. By comparison, according to John Kobler, the ratio for the Stasi was one secret policeman per 166 East Germans. Okay? When the regular informants were added, there would have been at least one spy watching every 66 citizens. When one adds in the estimated number of part-time snoops, like the plant watering neighbor, the result is nothing short of monstrous. One informant per 6.5 citizens. Are you guys hearing the sirens now? I can hear it through the headphones, so I hope the mic pick it up. Some German researchers think Kostler numbers are exaggerated, but even if we don't count the informants, the Stasi workforce was larger on a per capita basis than the Gestapo or the Soviet KGB. Zerstörung, a Stasi tactics. Zerstörung was a form of psychological harassment that was designed to wreak havoc on an individual without any need to arrest or torture the target. As the German historian Herbertus KB, I'm sure, hope I'm saying that right, puts it. The word is difficult to translate because it means originally biodegradation, but actually it is quite accurate. It is a quite accurate description. The goal was to destroy secretly the self-confidence of people, for example, by damaging their reputation, by organizing failures in their work, and by destroying their personal relationship. Considering this, East Germany was a very modern dictatorship. The Stasis didn't try to arrest every dissident, it preferred to paralyze them. And it could do so because it had access to so much personal information and to so many institutions. Okay? And what would some of these techniques be? Some of them were semi-overt. The Stasi would arrange, for example, for your work to go poorly, though the cause might not be known to the subject of the attack. The effects were pretty evident, or it would sometimes spread rumors about a target among his or her friends and colleagues, stories of alcoholism, parental neglect, or the like. The Stasi technique, messing with the mind. Sometimes the Stasi would play mischievous mind games with the target. They might, for example, enter his or her house and move the furniture around. Does not sound familiar. Or they might change the time on an alarm clock. Doesn't that sound familiar? Or replace the tea bag with different types of tea. I'm sure this sounds familiar to some TIs, though it hasn't happened to me yet. Other tactics were similarly abusive. Report exists of the Stasi arranging for a target to be deliberately incorrect medical treatment or to receive doctored photograph purporting to show him in a compromising position. One report, perhaps apocryphal, has the Stasi sending a vibrator to the wife of the target of one of their operation, evidently as a way of sending a message about his lovemaking. Isn't that what they try to do to us as TIs, particularly male TIs, right? Right? They think that our manhood is between our legs, our penises. Okay? But no, your manhood is within your mind, not what's between your legs. That's just nature. That's what nature gave you for reproductive purpose. And, you know, it's enjoyable when you're having sex, right? Okay? So why use Versazoom? For any number of reasons. First, there is the inferior effect of the technique. The victim doesn't know what is happening, and everybody around the target can watch as he or she crumbles under relentless pressure of state harassment. Germans today are known to be unwilling to share information they have collected with anyone outside of the German government. They also have different views on how to conduct surveillance, and given their legacy, we now know why. They have seen the dangers of pervasive government surveillance and are afraid of the consequences. So even though in America we have seen, okay, the dangers of pervasive government surveillance, but most people, okay, think that it's not happening to them, so it's okay. But the truth is, it is happening to you. Okay? It is. I've shown so many videos, so many reports. Let's talk about Edward Snowden. The recent, I forgot his name, but, you know, he was convicted of espionage recently, that gave up secrets of CIA surveillance tool that they've created to spy on Americans, to spy on adversaries and Americans, and people, and those living here within the United States. Okay, so why aren't they afraid of the consequences? I'll tell you why. because of silent sound spectrum, microwave and radio wave mind control technology. That's why. When you can change a person's mindset, completely do a complete 360 on the way a person think, to make them think in alignment with what the powers that be thinks or want them to think. Think about that. Okay? Common question about Stasi surveillance. What was the Stasi in Germany? Stasi was the internal security force for East Germany, established post-World War II. How did the Stasi use order for surveillance? The Stasi took order samples to enrich their files on this subject. They systematically and secretly collected the smell of suspected dissidents for use as a comparison. What does Zoom mean? Designed by the Stasi, Zoom was a form of psychological harassment to wreak havoc on an individual without any needs to arrest or torture the target. Now, Zoom also means the not also biodegradable, but the decomposition of a person's life and mental state. Okay? So make no mistakes about it, that these same tactics are being used right here in America and still being used around the world also. Okay? And so when we as TIs speak out against these things and share our stories, they don't want that. They don't like that. Why? Because again, when you parade yourself around as a nation of laws and the respect of citizens' rights and those who are living here legally, right, and violating their rights every single day, and then you get up on the wall stage and say to other countries that the very same thing that you're doing to your own citizens and those living in your own country, but you're turning and at another country pointing the finger and telling them that they're wrong for doing the very same thing that you're doing. Okay? There was a recent report about the US government infecting I'm sorry, that was usually, but it was the leaks by this guy. I forgot his name. And he talks about how they create software, right? And how they would, and also partnerships with these tech companies so they can have backdoor keys into our electronic devices, whether it be our routers, computer networks, you know, our computer itself within the BIOS system, right? And I remember that the United States had accused China of such, and they would not allow certain tech companies from China to sell computers here in the United States. Okay? So, that was just, you know, a little article on Zoom. Okay, there's much more extensive articles out there, and you guys should definitely go read them. Okay, now let's talk about how psychiatry is used to cover up government crimes, cover up the crimes of government agencies, and to discredit those who speak the truth, whistleblowers, those of us who are victims of non-consensual experimentation programs, and the use of psychiatry against us, so that if and when we do decide to speak out, okay, we mustered up the courage, regardless of all the threats, all the psychological torture, the physical harassment, the destruction of our livelihoods, of our families, so that no one would believe us. You know, the one thing that I loves to do is when they attack me and a continuous attack on me, okay, whether it be through rumors, propaganda, whether it be through directed energy, whether it be through remote neural monitoring, that it always awakens within me the fighting spirit. And you see, recently, I was watching uh, a video, and they've done this to me before too. Right? When they figure they isolate me and I haven't done a video, they're thinking, okay, well, we got him. He's finally given in. Is then try to talk about that they're going to end my family's bloodline. Okay. Recently, every time the word his father, your father, their father is said, they've been followed by the sound of police sirens. Whoop, whoop. Let me see. I got the sound effect here. Okay. I got the sound effect. You know me, right? I got the sound effect. Do it again. Okay. It's usually faster than that, though. Okay. So, particularly with being harassed by the NYPD police department, the New York Predators Department, I call them, and there have been black police officers who have come forward and talk about the racial profiling that it is, even though it's not in the official language of the NYPD. It's not on a document that says this is the policy of the department. We know that when they do their roll call before officers goes out, that the sergeant, the chief, who have you, will tell their officers to engage in racial profiling. And then there were police officers, black and brown police officers, who spoke out against it, and they were labeled as being mentally ill, as being crazy. So, like I said, this is not new. This is not new. Okay? But guess where it started? Okay? Guess where it started? Let's go to the University of Texas. Okay? On their website, it's an article, The Political Abuse of Psychiatry Against Dissenting Voices. Okay? February is Black History Month, a time for both celebrating the achievements of African Americans and for acknowledging the United States' long and complicated legacy of African American persecution. One particular ugly strand of that history is the legacy of using psychiatric diagnosis for political abuse, discredit, or institutionalize African Americans whose idea or activity pose a threat to established order, sometimes known as punitive psychiatry. And the sad part about this thing today is that you have black people, African Americans, okay, who will engage in the same behavior against their own. Okay? The same thing. And normally you will find these things within the religious institutions and within law enforcement. Okay? The issue became prominent in the Soviet Union in the 1970s and 1980s when the systematic political abuse of psychiatry led to 1/3 of political prisoners being locked up in psychiatric hospitals. Doctors would diagnose political dissenters with sluggish schizophrenia, describing what was claimed to be a form of the mental disorder characterized by a slowly progressive course explaining why patient might show no symptoms of schizophrenia or any other psychiatric disorder at the time of diagnosis. Patients suffering from this form of schizophrenia, which had been long discredited for its scientific inaccuracy, was said to exhibit grandiose idea of reforming society. We're talking about protesters today, civil rights organizations. Okay. Where was I? Grandiose idea of reforming society, along with other symptoms like reform delusions, struggle for truth, and perseverance. United States history is scattered with example of the application of psychiatric diagnosis to reinforce power relations in society. As early as 1851, the American physician Samuel A. Cartwright hypothesized that the cause of enslaved Africans free in captivity was a mental illness known as drapetomania. As a remedy for this disease, Cartwright, I said that word followed you here by police siren. I mean, you didn't hear it, but the police sirens went off, right? Cartwright prescribed the removal of both big toes, making running a physical impossibility. Can you believe this shit? Okay. During the civil rights era, African American pastor and activist Clement W. King Jr. tried in vain to enroll in the all-white University of Mississippi for a summer graduate course in 1958. Mississippi police arrested and confined King to a mental hospital for 12 days on the grounds that any N-word who tried to enter Ole Miss must be crazy. In 1968, a new version of the American Psychiatric Association Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the DSM-2, featured a strong redefinition of schizophrenia to include new terminology, including the term projection, projected anger, and hostility, terms often used to describe the actions of protesters and civil rights activists. In his book, The Protest Psychosis: How Schizophrenia Became a Black Disease, psychiatrist and cultural critic Jonathan Metzl shows how these revisions established a link between African Americans and schizophrenia that was so strong that by 1970s it could be seen easily in advertisement for antipsychotic drugs that features African imagery and depiction of belligerent black men in urban environment which clench black power fists. Do you think this has changed today? I'll tell you what, no, it hasn't. Okay? No, it hasn't. What has changed is that they will get these groups, okay, these marginalized groups, black people, Asian people, Hispanic people, to engage in the same tactic against their own and each other. Okay? So, if you think the Nazi scientists, psychiatrists, physicians were horrible people, they are nothing compared to the people today. that are running some of these institutions, engaging in some of these behaviors. Okay. You know, when I read just a Zoom about the whole, you know, being misdiagnosed by doctors, it hit me hard. Okay. And then I start to, you know, think about being drugged, having honey traps sent into your life. Some of them, you know, I guess started feeling bad because I talked about, you know, a girlfriend of mine at the time came over to my apartment, okay, just staring at me in my face, and, you know, tears run down her eyes, and she wouldn't tell me, you know, what was going on. I said, "Is everything wrong with you?" She's like, "Nope." I said, "Is everything wrong with your family?" She's like, "Nope." I said, "So what is it?" She didn't want to tell me anything. At that time, my brother, my twin brother, was a TI. Okay? And they were prepping me, okay, for targeting me. You know, when I think back about things that happened to me before I became overtly aware that something was wrong, and it started because I was being targeted by white supremacists, KKK, skinheads, and white police officers, white male police officers. You know, it hit me hard. Because, you know, growing up in being raised by a very kind, gentle woman, my mother, our mother, who was heavily into the church, didn't teach her sons anything about the real world. It was always, you know, ask God for what you want, you know, such and such. You know, the people we were around, you know, when we were young, you know, they were okay people. Some of them I call family, still do. But they themselves didn't know either. A lot of things. And again, it's no fault of their own or our parents, because living under white supremacy is to keep black people ignorant to what's really going on. Okay? You must understand that. All right? So when we're, you know, going at each other, particularly as black people, when we're going at each other because we don't quite understand the history, we don't quite understand how evil and devious these people are. Okay? So, unsurprisingly, there are many historic examples of African American leaders whose mental health status have been called into question by those who wish to brandish psychiatric diagnosis to discredit their calls for social reform. According to classified documents, the FBI diagnosed Malcolm X with pre-psychotic paranoid schizophrenia. Highlighted his plot to overthrow the government. He never talked about overthrowing the government. You understand? I want you to understand that when I talk about there's a reason why they came up with the word projection. Because they're, in terms of with psychiatry, because they're the ones that are projecting who they are onto everybody else as an excuse so they can murder, frame, okay, experiment, do whatever it is that they feel that they want to do. Okay? So, commentators have noted that even if figures like Malcolm X did display paranoid symptoms, the cause is now tragically obvious, as history shows that the government really was profiling him and tapping his phone. So, you know, when they try to say we're paranoid, yeah, we're paranoid by the sense of the word, because, you know, we don't believe, we know our phones have been tapped. We know our food is being poisoned, our meals are being tampered with, we're being drugged, in some cases, we're being sexually assaulted, raped, right? Particularly if you're a woman who's a TI. We're being manipulated, we're being steered using, steer using technology, invisible technology, right? With the ability to influence our minds, or downright take over our consciousness, even if it's just temporarily. Okay? Using the abusing mental health diagnosis in this way undermines the cause of mental health care and the goals of achieving health equity. When political dissidence is misrepresented as clinical psychosis, okay, and I think this is the reason why they've been hitting me with the directed energy so hard recently, because of my insomnia. Because you have to understand is that if you don't sleep, you don't get enough rest, okay, your body's not the first thing to break down. It's your mind. You will experience and go through psychosis. Okay? So activities and patients both suffer. Manipulative psychiatry contributes to the stigma surrounding mental health and perpetuate unfair power relations within society. You know, in the 90s, when when Gary Webb did his expose on the CIA, the crack cocaine connection, when black people started to ask questions, the white media labeled black people as being paranoid. I'm not making this up. So how is it that we easily forget these things? Okay? Manipulative psychiatry continues to be, okay, I just read that. Excuse me. Mental health care tools should not be used to silence the voice of those who wish to challenge the status quo. It is vital that no matter what a person experiences, they feel safe to share and do not censor themselves for fear of being mischaracterized or worse, turned into a target. Now, you know, there are many different ways that those within these government agencies have figured out in terms of how they can get away with non-consensual human experimentation, with silencing those of us who are active in, you know, the rights of citizens. And I talk about how, you know, within the black community, it's all hush hush when it comes to the murder of young civil rights activists who were heavily engaged in activism during the Michael Brown murder in Ferguson, Missouri, and how over the past few years, at least 7 or 8, I'm not quite sure the amount, of these young activists have been murdered under extraneous circumstances. I'm not sure if I'm using the word extraneous correctly. Okay, that just came into my mind. All right. So, also, if they wanted you to commit crimes, how they can use this technology, right, to create a double personality within your mind, one external and one is yours, your own inner personality, your own consciousness, and how they can co-opt your consciousness or take over your consciousness to get you to do things that can label you a criminal. And because these technologies are so secret, and because again they'll use the national security or state secrets or public safety or whatever to shield themselves from telling the truth. Okay? Now, if you think this only happens to, I mean, it happens to black people the majority of the time, right? But there are exceptions where it happens to white people. I mean, you look at MK Ultra. MK Ultra, when they show you the victims on television, they only show you the white ones, okay? But there were thousands of black people who were experimented on during MK Ultra, and these were the worst kind of experiments that they could have done on human beings. This is why they don't talk about these things. Talk about Dr. Robert Heath. What did he say? Black people, he said, well, he used the N word, are cheaper to experiment on than cats because they are in abundance. This was a neurologist, a scientist. Okay? So you know their attitude towards black people. This is why you don't see the information when it comes to experimenting on black people, what it is that they were truly doing. Okay? So, let me start by saying, you know, if you guys saw that movie with Robert De Niro, what is it? Dog Days, with about Frank Serpico. It was a New York City police officer in the 70s who spilled the beans on corruption and what he had to go through. They made a movie about it. Okay. Well, let's talk about, and I think I did a video where I on the black police officers who spilled the beans on the racial profiling and the NYPD and how they were labeled with a mental illness and troublemakers and all this stuff, right? So, but this is about another police officer. Yeah, and this was in 2008, 2009. 2 years ago, a police officer in a Brooklyn precinct became gravely concerned about how the public was being served. To document his concern, he began carrying around a digital sound recorder, secretly recording his colleague and superiors. Now, you know, when I was working, man, that's what I did. That's what I used to do. Okay? Because when my work was being sabotaged, I started taking pictures of my work computer screen to show that I did put the files, taking videos so that I did put the files where it need to be. And I would come in the morning and my manager would be like, hey man, you know, they never got the files and this and that. And I'm like, listen man, I did. Let me show you. You know, because it was happening so much and I was getting blamed. And I would tell him, I said, listen man, I know you don't believe me, but I put the files in the correct folder. Okay? Until I was showing him the photos that I took from the night before, the videos that I took from the night before of me putting the files in the proper folder, okay, is when he started to believe me and he started calling my on their bullshit. And after that, he never bothered me again about it. Come to find out, sooner or later, they got to him too. The way he started talking to me. And also because he knew I was taking pictures and making a video of where I put my file, he couldn't say anything about that. Also, even when they were still continuing to do it. Okay? So, shit, let me read this again. 2 years ago, a police officer in a Brooklyn precinct became gravely concerned about how the public was being served. To document his concern, he began carrying around a digital sound recorder, secretly recording his colleagues and supervisors. He recorded precinct roll calls, he recorded his precinct commander and other supervisors, he recorded street encounters, he recorded small talks and station house banter. In all, he surreptitiously collected hundreds of hours of cops talking about their jobs. Made without the knowledge or approval of the NYPD, the tapes, made between June 1st, 2008 and October 31st, 2009 in the 81st precinct in Bedford-Stuyvesant and obtained exclusively by The Voice, provide an unprecedented portrait of what it's like to work as a cop in this city. They reveal that precinct bosses threatened street cops if they didn't make their quarters of arrests and stop and frisk, but also tell them not to take certain robbery report in order to manipulate crime statistics. Okay? Listen to that now. Okay? The tapes also refer to command officers calling crime victims directly to intimidate them about their complaints. As a result, the tape shows the rank and file NYPD street cop experience enormous pressure in a strange catch-22. You see, even they use that against cops also. This is why it literally astounds me that police officers do what they do in terms of targeting us as TIs. But I understand there are those within those departments who will do anything for a promotion, for a raise, what have you. Okay? You got to understand that. Okay? He or she is expected to maintain high activity, including stop and frisk, but paradoxically, to record fewer actual crimes. This pressure, as I'm reading this stuff, you know, sirens out there, cops, whoop, whoop, you know, normal shit that they do when they don't want me to speak in the truth, okay? Because, again, you know, they know what they've done to us as TIs, okay? And believe me, you know, if they get busted, they're going to do everything possible to try to bury targeted individuals for speaking the truth. That's their mentality. That's the mentality of criminals, of a mafia, a mafioso type of mentality, which they display on a daily basis. Retaliatory, right? Frame, lying, murder, stealing, rape, theft, all that, you know. They're a criminal organization, simple as that, masquerading as a law enforcement agency. Okay? So, this pressure was accompanied by paranoia from the precinct commander to the lieutenant to the sergeant to the line officers of violating any of the seemingly endless bureaucratic rules and regulation that would bring in outside supervision. The tapes also reveal that locker room environment at the precinct. On a recording made in September, the subject began discussing at roll call is station house graffiti done by the cops themselves and something called cocking the memo book, a practical joke in which officers draw penises on each other daily notebooks. As far as the defacing of department property, all right, the shit on the side of the building and on people's locker, the drawing penises in people's memo book, and whatever else is going on, just knock it off, all right? A Sergeant A can be heard saying, if the wrong person sees the stuff coming in here, then IAB, the Internal Affairs Bureau, is going to be all over this place, all right? You want to draw penis? Draw them in your own memo book and don't actually draw on the wall. He then adds that just before an inspection, a supervisor had to walk around the station house and paint over all the graffitis. The Voice is publishing several stories to deal with the issue that the recording presents. In this week's installment, we look at roll calls at the Bed-Stuy precinct and the conflicting instructions given to street cop who must look busy at all times while actually suppressing crime report. Repeated attempts to get official response from the department have been met with silence. Okay? So, let's talk about the cop who made the recording. So, Schoolcraft first made headline in, his name is Adrian Schoolcraft, by the way. Okay? And you see, police officers like this, you know, they deserve accommodation, they deserve respect, the highest honor. But what they do, they destroy their lives. They label them, they'll set them up for crimes, destroy their livelihood, Okay? Schoolcraft first made headlines in February when the Daily News reported that he was speaking. As I said, the word daily, police sirens follow after. The uh, Daily News report that he was speaking out about manipulation of crime reports at the 81st. His complaint, the Daily News wrote, had sparked an investigation that had put even the precinct commander, Deputy Inspector Stephen Muriello, under suspicion. These stories, however, gave no indication that Schoolcraft was also in possession of the remarkable tapes. Schoolcraft told The Voice he carried the audio recorder initially to protect himself from the civilian complaint that can result from street encounter, but then he began to document things happening in the precinct that bothered him. After he ran afoul of precinct politics, he recorded what he viewed as retaliation by his bosses. See what I mean? I talk about retaliation. Okay? Particularly with my target and what they're doing now, particularly the daily harassment from the police, the noise campaign, all throughout the night, it is a form of retaliation. Okay? How else would you present the fraud being committed to the public, he asked. On January 28th, and I said the word fraud, you hear police sirens, okay? Because it's funny how the people who are committing the fraud want to accuse you of committing fraud. What fraud am I committing? Okay? I'm not committing disability fraud because my injury is documented. Okay? From doctors and also when you go into the disability office, they give you an x-ray. Oh, excuse me. I just sit up slightly. My back. Right? So, and you know, it happened twice, okay? So I'm not making stuff up, okay? I'm not the fraud. They are the fraud. They lie. They have secret police funds, which they buy secret technology for surveillance, including microchip to implant within people that they arrest or they want to, you know, control and abuse and use. Okay? So we know what it is that they're doing. I know what it is that they're doing. They know what it is that they're doing. And the world will know what it is that they're doing. Okay? And they can talk about my having delusional grandeur and paranoid, all the fuck they want. I don't give a damn about that. What I care about is that going forward, more people will be aware, okay? And hopefully they will be exposed for exactly who they are. Okay? Which they are criminals with a gun and a badge who think that they can do whatever they want. These white supremacists and the black ones, the white supremacists in black faces or with black skin or brown skin, whatever, it doesn't matter. They're still operating on their system of white supremacy and they feel like they can do it. And the thing about it is that you got people who go into these positions because it gives them the power to do what they want to do to others. Okay? This is why you see a lot of these cops, you know, they're heavily into religion, into the church, talking about they're going on God's patrol and all this bullshit. Okay? What do you think has been happening in the United States over the past 4 decades? We're talking about the infiltration of religious fanatics within all sectors of society. Okay? Because they want to take over the United States. These are the white supremacists. Okay? And they pick and choose certain people of color, particularly, you know, Asians and Hispanics. Okay? Because they've given them preference in terms of immigration, in terms of business loans and all the stuff. And we as black people don't even see that shit. Dr. Claude Anderson been talking about this for decades. Dr. Amos Wilson been talking about it for decades, you know, though he passed on. And I'm bring up Dr. Umar Johnson because he is relevant as a black person and a black leader. And I consider him a black leader. I don't give a damn what anybody else had to say. But he's a black leader to me. Okay? So, and the Minister Louis Farrakhan. Okay? So, on January 28, 2009, patrol officers on the evening tour at the 81st Precinct gathered in a Unitarian muster room at the 30 Ralph Avenue Station House. They stood on white floors in ranks. The blue and white walls were decorated with the old wanted posters, two glass cupboards with crime maps posted with warnings about sexual harassment and retaliation, and a flat screen television. There were 2 tables, 3 chairs, and a podium used by supervisors to address the cops. A roll call is the key moment of the workday of any police officer. Think Hill Street Blues, and let's be careful out there. The sergeant, lieutenant, well, I keep getting these notifications from Facebook now. See, what they'll do too is that they will manipulate people to send me messages on Facebook, okay, if I'm doing certain things, okay? Particularly when I see new people get on my Facebook page and start liking, you know, stuff that I post, making comments and stuff like that. They're trying to get into the good side. And then, okay, whenever I start doing the video, they will show themselves for who they are, which is undercover perps. And I will call them out. I will call them out, okay? I had one person invite me to come speak at some event next year. And I'm like, oh, are you trying to do to me what y'all did to Malcolm X's grandson? No, thank you. As a TI, the state that I'm in right now, okay, I'm not going anywhere by myself. Okay, we gotta be smarter than that, right? We gotta be, as TIs, we gotta be smarter than that. If we're gonna go, we're gonna go with someone, a group of people that we know have our backs, okay? And again, that's a pretty tall order, okay? So, the officers are told about recent crime and trouble spots in the neighborhood. Officers are subject to inspection and given training. The language naturally is a mix of quasi-military jargon, street slang, rough epithets. Am I saying that right? Epithets, and a fair bit of gallow humor. In other words, coarse speak. The 81st Precinct covered Bedford-Stuyvesant and a densely populated, see, slurring my words, populated multi-racial patchwork of low-income areas, public housing projects, and blocks going through gentrification at just 1.7 square miles. Bed-Stuy is geographically small, but a place that, according to the tapes, the officers view as a heavy precinct. You're not working in Midtown Manhattan, where people are walking around, smiling and being happy, Lieutenant told cops in November 1st, 2008. Roll call, you're working in Bed-Stuy, where everyone probably got a warrant. Yeah, and why is that? Because they have been arresting black people, okay, giving us criminal records, because that's what white supremacists do, to destroy the lives of particularly black and brown men, but put special emphasis on black men, okay? So, on this particular day, the precinct commander, Deputy Inspector Stephen Mariello, a Lieutenant B, and a Sergeant C are leading the session. After attendance have been taken and assignment handed out, Mariello, a hard-charging boss, given a colorful language, exhort the officer to disperse crowds away from certain buildings and stop and question people. Listen, if it's micromanaging, it's micromanaging, he said. Just do your job. If you see a large crowd, get out of your car. Just do what you got to do. You know them. You stop them. Go somewhere else. Stay off the radar. Okay? Morello then, I just said go somewhere else, and I hear the police sirens again. You know what? I'm gonna take a vacation because I want to see what they're gonna do. So I'm gonna take a vacation because I think lately they have been sending me this subliminal message that I can't go anywhere and such, and oh, they're gonna arrest me. So I need a vacation. I'm gonna take a vacation. Let's see. Of course I'm gonna record it too, right? Because I want you guys to see. Okay. So he then mentioned the patrol borough commander, Marino, who is apparently examining the activity of every cop in the 10 precincts he oversees. If you don't want to work, then you know what? Just do the all go through the motion and get your numbers anyway, he said. He's taking this very seriously, looking at everyone evaluation, and he's yelling at every CO, commanding officer about who give this guy points or this girl is no good. This girl's no good. Sergeant C then said the cops should be able to hit their number target. I told you guys last month, they're looking at these numbers and people are going to get moved, he said. It ain't about losing your job. You can make your job real uncomfortable, and we all know what that means. So I want you guys to understand this, what we have to contend with. You know, I'm not talking about me being a TI, but as a black person. Okay? How many millions of young black lives these racist individuals, okay, who wear a badge and carry a gun, how many lives that they have destroyed? All right. So it's a lot here. But to make a long story short, they basically label this guy as being crazy. Okay. They label him with a mental illness. I was doing this, let me see if I can find let's go to Wikipedia. So, I'll tell you right here, right? Adrian Schoolcraft, a former NYPD, a former New York City Police Department officer who secretly recorded police conversation from 2008 to 2009. He brought the tapes to NYPD investigator in October 2009 as evidence of corruption and wrongdoing within the department. So this is what he does. He brought it to the people who investigate the NYPD, right? So the tapes were used as evidence of arrest quarter leading to police abuse such as wrongful arrest, and that emphasis on fighting crime sometimes result in underreporting the crimes to artificially deflate CompStats numbers. After voicing his concerns, Schoolcraft was repeatedly harassed by members of the NYPD and reassigned to a desk job. After he left work early one day, the ESU, the Emergency Service Unit, this is how they kidnap you, okay? I keep telling you, when they try to use these vans, start seeing all these vans around me, talking about they're going to kidnap me, right? The ESU unit illegally entered his apartment, physically abducted him, and forcibly admitted him to a psychiatric facility where he was held against his will for 6 days. In 2008, he released the audio recording To the Village Voice, leading to the reporting of a multi-part series titled NYPD Tapes. The same year, Schoolcraft filed a lawsuit against Jamaica Hospital and the NYPD, and they would get the hospital involved. There was a woman who was driving her car, I forgot what kind of car, but it was an expensive car. And the cops stopped her, because she had dreads. I think she was a lawyer too. Okay? And so when they realized what they have done and they were going to be in Schitt's Creek, they literally arrested her and then committed her to Bellevue. Okay, and also because she told them that she was friends, that Barack Obama was one of her followers on Twitter, and they were laughing at that too, the fact that she said that. Okay, they were trying to tell her, no, Barack Obama is not your follower on Twitter. All they had to do was look at her damn Twitter account, because he sure was. So they arrested her and then they put her in Bellevue, a mental facility, mental hospital, against her will. Okay? So they will always use, they're not doing anything that they haven't done in the past to black people. And she was black, by the way. Okay? So, where was I? So the same year, Schoolcraft filed a lawsuit against Jamaica Hospital and the NYPD. In 2012, the Village Voice reported that a 2010 unpublished report of an internal NYPD investigation found that 81st Precinct had evidence of quarter and underreporting. Both of Schoolcraft's claim was settled in 2015, with him receiving $600,000 from the NYPD portion of the lawsuit. And that's crazy to me. Like, that amount is really ridiculous. It's crazy. Okay? This man who they've destroyed his career, okay? And only he received $600,000. That's also part of the retaliatory effort. Okay? I mean, it's really is ridiculous. But, you know, I just wanted to show you guys, you know, an example, just a zoom, and also here in the United States, how the very same tactics that they've used didn't originate in Germany or Soviet Union, former Soviet Union. It was originated right here in the United States. Okay, this is where they get it from. So you gotta think about who is running this country, who within the security and law enforcement agencies at the top positions. Yeah, you may have one off like Eric Holder, but also he got caught up in that what is it, that gun running thing, you know what I'm saying, as a way to getting his hands dirty also. Okay, anybody that get into office who are going to put the people first will not last long. You got to understand, those that are in power, that are running things behind the scene, will never give up that power. Okay? And they will do whatever it takes to make sure they hold on to that power. Meanwhile, they keep society, people in society, dumbed down. Okay? Creating all sorts of distraction so we can argue about. So our eyes is not on them, that we don't see them for who they truly are. Okay? So with that being said, is there anything else that I wanted to read? Let's see here. Okay, yeah. So this is from psychologyfandom.com. Talks about punitive psychiatry, political abuse of psychiatry. And let me just read this, okay? Political abuse of psychiatry is a purported misuse of psychiatry diagnosis, detention, and treatment for the purpose of obstructing the fundamental human rights of certain groups and individuals in a society. In other words, abuse of psychiatry, including one for political purpose, is deliberate action against citizens certified who, because of their mental condition, need neither psychiatric restraint nor psychiatric treatment. Psychiatrists have been involved in human rights abuse in states across the world when the definition of mental disease were expanded to include political disobedience. As scholars have long argued, governmental and medical institutions code menace for to authority as mental disease during political disturbance. Nowadays, in many countries, political prisoners are often confined and abused in mental institutions. Psychiatric confinement of sane people is uniformly considered a particularly pernicious form of repression. Okay? It's not only a form of repression, but in the long run, it creates mental harm and mental illness within those individuals. You don't think I've developed a mental illness because of what was done to me? The fact that I walk around with my phone recording this shit every single day because they won't stop targeting me, okay, is proof off in itself. Because even if they stop, let's say they stop, decide they're going to target me, okay, and they do, right? Let's say that's not what you know will never happen, but let's just hypothetically say so. Okay, you will still find me walking around with my phone in my hand and recording shit. Okay, that's how, and I can admit that because I can understand the damage that was done to me as well as other TIs. Okay, I can understand that. And because I can understand that, it doesn't mean that it hasn't affected me. Okay? I can barely sleep. I can barely think because of the remote monitoring. Every word, such as, like for example today, the word revolution, anything that is an anti-corrupt government word that I've used or read is followed immediately by police sirens. Okay? So come on now. Anyway, thank you guys if you do watch this video. I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you guys on the next video. Thank you.